Training camp is next week, so we have to look at some players in Dynasty that we're going to buy before training camp starts because we think there's a pretty good chance that they're going to increase in value when training camp actually comes. So let's start with Javonte Williams. And Javonte has been victim to a lot of reports that have basically said, hey, Javonte might not make the roster. Javonte is maybe not looking so good. Javonte this, Javonte that. And the thing about those reports is that it's actually report. And actually, it's not even a report. It's tweet. It was really just one tweet that we saw over Javonte Williams, and it was a Denver Broncos beat reporter. Luke put it on the screen. I don't even know the guy's name, but he basically said, like, will Javonte even make the roster, ? And all of Dynasty Twitter said, oh my gosh, Javonte's valueless now. And Javonte very well may be valueless in a year. I mean, that's a very realistic possibility for a running back going into his 4th year in the NFL that from a fantasy perspective hasn't really done anything since his rookie year. Now, there is more to this story than just Javonte might not make the roster. The truth of it is, the odds are Javonte Williams is going to be the starting running back in Denver. I still think he's the most talented guy there. I still think he's the most well-rounded guy in Denver. And I still think Sean Payton likes the dude. I don't think there's really any true speculation that Javonte Williams is going to be the starter. And the thing about his value right now is that his value has steadily decreased to the point where he's now an 11th round pick in Dynasty. And so because of that, what we can do is we can pick up Javonte Williams. And I think, from a value standpoint, Nathan mentioned before we went live, he's equivalent to Kendre Miller. So he's not really possessing any serious value to where if you paid a late second for him, which is what he's worth at the moment, you're not really going to be super out a ton of really good value if he does for some reason not perform this year. But what you know is going to happen, and what we're going to set our clocks to, is Javonte Williams going to be announced as the starter in Denver. He's going to come out in the preseason games. You're going to see him catch some passes. You might see him score a touchdown or two. And as soon as people see this guy alive and on the Broncos roster, his value is going to go up. And so what do we do at that point? We reevaluate. But right now, I've seen a running back, a most likely starting running back who has value that has fallen significantly that we can grab before he actually gets on the field and shows us what he's fully healthy. Again, he's got a new quarterback this year. It's a different situation in Denver. I want to play my cards with Javonte Williams and kind of see what happens. And then maybe even just play the market. If I sell him later, I sell him later. But right now, I feel like he's one of those guys that's bound to increase in value because of training camp hype.
Yeah, I'm playing theoreticals is fun, and we all played that this offseason with Javonte Williams. We even toyed with the idea of, hey, maybe Sean Payton will cut Javonte. But honestly, at this point in time, it doesn't really make sense anymore. Like, he's still on a rookie deal, on the 4th year of his rookie deal, drafting the 2nd round. There's not a ton of money going into Javonte. They may as well just stick with him for the final year and then let him walk in free agency in 2025.
It's a prove-it year.
It's a prove-it year for what his career could look like outside of the Denver Broncos franchise.
Right.
From here on out. So it really is like, in fairness, there are some guys going in his range that I do prefer over Javonte Williams. I prefer Jalen Polk. I prefer Tony Pollard, who I think is legitimately one of the best values in Dynasty Fantasy Football right now. Tony Pollard is less valuable than Javonte Williams.
Calvin Ridley is right next to him.
Javonte Williams hasn't even come close to Tony Pollard's production. Like, what are we doing? But Kendre Miller's behind a running back. Javonte Williams is the lead back if he makes the team, which we still pretty much expect to. Romeo Doubs, who's worst case scenario, the 3rd or 4th option in Green Bay's offense. B-Rob, who we know what his ceiling is. Jamison Williams, entirely unproven. And if you think that he's going to be hyper productive this year with Amon-Ra and Laporta and Gibbs and Montgomery, I don't know what to tell you. So take a shot on Javonte Williams at price.
I think there are guys there. Stafford, Pollard, Ridley. Like, there are guys, there are a ton of guys in that range where I'm like, those guys are just ridiculous values. Yes. And there's a ton of other guys in that range. I'm like, like Pat Freiermuth? Like, I'd pay Pat Freiermuth for Javonte Williams all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like, I'm taking that shot. You got the next guy.
Yeah, our next guy here is going to be Jared Goff. We've kind of alluded to Jared Goff quite a bit and how much we like him as a value. Liked him as a value before his big mega contract, which... Of course, he got the contract. I don't know what people were expecting and why he was going as low as he previously was. The surprising thing to us, the more surprising thing to us that we were not expecting is that his value was gonna kind of stay stagnant even after the contract.
For why?
Almost like the contract was baked into his price. But with that contract and the longevity that he now has as a premier starter in the NFL and a premier fantasy asset at the quarterback position in Superflex leagues, he's lost value since the contract. He had a decent spike, and then he kind of just came back to value equivalent to DK Metcalf and Travis Etienne in a Superflex league. Dalton Kincaid, we like Dalton Kincaid. I'd rather have Jared Goff
Easily.
Michael Pittman. I love Pittman. I'd rather have Goff
all day.
Like Goff with his contract should be going 2-3 turn. And you're getting him at the beginning of the 4th round.
I've seen him go mid-4th more than that.
Not even the beginning of the 4th. He's falling to the late 4th sometimes.
Yeah.
Jeez. I
mean, he's locked in until 2027.
Oh my goodness.
He's a 2020, actually 2028.
Look, we've kind of touched on this in the past before, kind of comparing Trevor Lawrence's price to Jared Goff. And when you look at their production profiles and what they've done up to this point, Jared Goff is just as good an asset as Trevor Lawrence, minus a little rushing upside, but he's outproduced Trevor Lawrence consistently. And he has more passing volume. He has a safer floor, and you're getting him at a cheaper price. This guy's like, honestly, since there's no Christian McCaffrey on the team, he's kind of like a higher upside Brock Purdy.
and
you know
safer with a big contract on one of the, still on one of the best offenses in the NFL. I really don't get this one. Yeah, he's 29. Like, sure, but this is a team. This is a team that was a touchdown away from the Super Bowl. Like, they're not only running it back, like they're doing everything they can to make a Super Bowl in the next 4 years, and they know that Goff can get them there because he dang near got them there.
Yep,
he dang near got them there. I mean, it's not like we don't think that Jared Goff can't get a team to a Super Bowl, right? So with that, I mean, we play Dynasty in 3-year windows. Over the next 3 years, Jared Goff, I'm probably taking him over guys you mentioned, like Trevor Lawrence, right? I'm definitely taking him over some of the rookies right now, right? Because I think Goff will be productive in one of the best over the next 3 years, I'd rather have Goff than Drake May. I just being honest, and I love Drake May, and I think he's great value, but like Jared Goff in this range, like I'd rather have Goff than Tua. Goff is so much safer than Tua. So much safer. And he already got paid. And he's also not lost like 100 pounds of muscle and looks like a little Hawaiian dude now. But the point being, there's a ton of reasons to not only roster Jared Goff in Dynasty, but to even value him as high as Nathan said, is the 2-3 turn. And you're getting a mid-late 4th. In my opinion, he's one of the best values in that range, period, right now. So I think he's fantastic. I'm trying to get him everywhere if he's at that price. And Kyren Williams is a guy, honestly, he's a guy that you remember at the beginning of this offseason, we were kind of like, I have no idea what to do with Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
I know what to do with Kyren Williams. I figured it out. I'm going to actually just let him be on my roster and actually start in my running back spot this year. And a lot of people wonder why. Why would you do that? Because they got the almighty, the never-ceasing Blake Corum. And I'll be the first to tell you
never ceasing or never seizing?
Yeah, never ceasing. Yeah, that's true.
There you go.
Hard S, idiot. But I'd be the first to tell you that if Blake Corum worked out in the NFL, that would be cool. And everybody would love it. And I would be happy for him. And he's a likable dude. He works hard. He went to Michigan. He played on a harp, blah, blah, blah.
Chances are he's going to get his opportunity at some point in LA's offense. That's for sure.
He is going to get his opportunity.
The way that McVay operates, yeah.
Here's the other way McVay operates. McVay will run the crap out of his running backs when he thinks he has a lead back. And you know this because Kyren Williams was on the field 84% of the time last year he was healthy. Maybe it was part of the reason he got hurt. I'm going to say that if Kyren Williams is healthy, Sean McVay's not going to look at that and be like, let's split it. Blake Corum, Kyren Williams right down the middle. That's not really what Sean McVay does. Most NFL teams now, yes, are going towards a pretty heavy committee. You typically have 2 to 3 backs in the backfield that you're giving, consistent workload to. Even if you get even one guy in here, it's him and Corum and that's it. And who are they going to give the red zone touches to? Kyren. They will give the red zone touches to Kyren. Why? Because you have a large sample size of him having a ton of red zone success last year when they handed him the ball. Why wouldn't they? It's not like he hasn't earned it. I mean, in an NFL locker room, you're really going to tell the veteran that just came off of a season where he had 15 touchdowns in 12 games, and he had 1,100 rushing yards. 1,100 rushing yards. Had a season ended by injury. And you think that they're just going to tell him Blake Corum's the guy in this offense. We are blinded. We as a Dynasty community are blinded by the Blake Corum hype. And I like Blake Corum. Can Blake Corum be good? Yes. Is he Ray Rice? No. For a lot of reasons, but
someone's going to come back to that as a receipt when he scores his first touchdown or something.
Yeah, he got me. The thing is,
Blake Corum is him.
With Kyren, and people are like, Blake Corum is every bit of the back that Kyren Williams is. Maybe he is, because Kyren Williams wasn't really a great prospect coming out of college. But when you're talking about the team dynamic, the opportunity, the proven veteran in the backfield, and how Sean McVay typically runs his offenses, it all points to Kyren Williams being the guy there. And he's a guy last year that, again, he averaged over 20 points per game in PPR leagues when he was healthy. 20 points per game. That is not something you just look at and be like, you don't think the Rams are excited about what they could have in Kyren Williams here? You don't just accidentally stumble into and trip over yourself into 1,100 yards, 5 yards per carry on 228 rushing attempts in 12 games. That efficiency on that much volume is ridiculous. And you think they're just going to be like, Blake Corum, we got Blake. They don't care that you got Blake Corum in the late second of your dynasty draft. They don't care. They like Kyren. Kyren is good. I'm buying Kyren.
Yeah, and I think before all this stuff happened with Corum being drafted in the NFL draft in the third round and all this chaos happening with Kyren's price, he was being valued according to his production and what he could be potentially long-term, even outside of his time with the LA Rams, because we know that Sean McVay doesn't pay running backs past their rookie deal. But now we've gotten to a point where his price has decreased multiple rounds and his volatility is baked into his price, right? So now is a time where you can be comfortable in just investing in the production, even though there's risk in him decreasing in price as well over the next 12 to 18 months. That's absolutely possible. Some would even say likely, and that's completely fine. But again, if Blake Corum scores 18 plus points per game again this year, like Kyren. If Kyren does, then where are we going to be with him and his price? Probably at least maintaining. So at the very least, you can invest in him now. He's going to become very, very valuable to contenders midseason. And if your team isn't working out as a whole and you need to kind of ship off some assets for future picks and future value, Kyren is going to be one of the more expensive guys that contenders are going to want to target that aren't cornerstone top 2 to 3 round assets.
I think if he's averaging, even if he averages 17 points a game,
I know.
Holy crap.
Yes.
Holy crap. And his value is going to be somewhat insulated at that age in that offense.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's a good value right now. So
yeah, Marquise Brown is another guy that I think is a pretty good value at this point as well. I've been kind of uncertain about Marquise Brown's price and what to do with him. He kind of, gained a lot of value when he signed with the Chiefs, had that spike, and then that natural gradual decline where he's kind of come to an understanding with the Dynasty community on what his price should be. And right now his overall ADP, according to Keep Trade Cut, is 116. He's going in the 10th round. And I understand, look, there's no secret what his contract is. It's a 1-year deal. And honestly, long-term, I don't expect Marquise Brown to be an option for the Kansas City Chiefs, because if he has a successful year, he will be paid more elsewhere, because the Chiefs have showed time and time again that they're not willing to pay top dollar to wide receivers. They'd rather invest that in the defensive line and Patrick Mahomes and the offensive line as well. And just look no further than Tyreek Hill, the best wide receiver in the NFL. Again, this is not a price check for Marquise Brown and us saying hey, he's going to be on the Chiefs forever. What I'm saying is that this is the situation we've been waiting for, not only for Hollywood, but for the passing game as a whole for the Chiefs since Tyreek Hill left. They just invested in 2 wide receivers this offseason, something we've been begging them to do for the last 2 years, and they finally did it. What do we think the Chiefs are going to do? They have Patrick Mahomes, and I understand they've thrown it less the last couple of years, and even Mahomes' production has gone a little bit down in 2023, and they ran the ball more. You can make the playoffs and you can win a Super Bowl by running the ball and having a great defensive line. But everyone knew that the Chiefs had deficiencies last year offensively. And what was their deficiency? It was the lack of an ability to stretch the field consistently because they had no talented wide receivers. MVS was their best guy. Not only does Marquise Brown have field stretching ability, he is much more consistent. He has shown that he can produce. as a field stretcher and someone in the short to intermediate game as well. We're talking about a guy who's not that far removed from being the top option for Kyler Murray. When DeAndre Hopkins went down that year and they were on the same team for a year, Marquise Brown became the next man up, and he was incredibly productive. He even had a decent amount of target volume to begin the year last year when Kyler Murray was still out, because he was like
double-digit targets.
Right. Double-digit targets.
Multiple game span.
Yes. Marquise Brown is a sleeper this year. I mean, for you contenders, if you want to get a nice guy that you can plug into your flex consistently, Marquise Brown's the guy. I like Xavier Worthy. I think where Xavier Worthy was drafted in the NFL draft was absolutely merited, and I think he is so much more, his potential and upside is so much more than the track star people are making him to be right now. He is far from certain, far from proven. Rashee Rice, who knows how long he's going to be suspended? Actually, I know it's going to be less than 6 games because the NFL doesn't care. The NFL doesn't care.
But it doesn't matter.
But it does not matter. If Rashee Rice is gone or if he's in the offense to begin the year, Marquise Brown will have a role, and it could very well be the number one most consistent option for Patrick Mahomes in the Chiefs offense. The Chiefs offense for 2024. Come on, man.
You want to know what my favorite thing of all time is?
What?
I love it when we start a video and you're kind of like, yeah. And then you get going about something and you get really woken up about it. That's what happened in this video. Look at Nathan at the beginning of the video versus now. It's really fun to watch. Chris Godwin's a guy that I wanted to put on here because I do think that Chris Godwin's production alone it's worth his price. He's a guy that I want to get because I want to flex Chris Godwin. I want to flex Chris Godwin on all my teams this year. He's the wide receiver 42 right now on Keep Trade Cut. He's value equivalent to Terry McLaurin. He's going to score more than Terry McLaurin this year. He's value equivalent to Christian Watson. He's going to score more fantasy points than Christian Watson. Ricky Pearsall. He's going to score more fantasy points than Ricky Pearsall is going to this year. DeAndre Swift. I bet he outscores DeAndre Swift as well. Zamir White. He's going to outscore him. Stephon Diggs. I think there's a decent chance. You never know with the Houston offense, though. David Montgomery, he's probably going to outscore him. Deontay Johnson, that's a toss-up. Xavier Legette, he's probably going to outscore him. So in terms of the price you're getting Chris Godwin and the amount of points he's going to score, he's one of the best values for contenders in this range. And I think Chris Godwin, I've mentioned it many times on both channels. I think he's going to be more in the role he's comfortable with this year. He was moved out of the slot a lot last year. He's more comfortable in the slot. Not only that, he scores more fantasy points in the slot. It's where he's a high target, high yak, high route winning percentage, dominant wide receiver, fantasy relevant, always wide receiver 2 range with Mike Evans. And I'm flexing that. I love that. I think Chris Godwin's a really good value in Dynasty right now. And honestly, I don't think Chris Godwin's in Tampa Bay next year. So I think even if you buy Chris Godwin this year, if he goes somewhere next year with any sort of appeal, similar to Marquise Brown going to the Chiefs, I think you're going to see his value go up next year. I think there's a good chance he maintains value year over year.
Yes.
So I think that there's little risk involved here, and I honestly think that he's one of my favorite guys to go get right now to flex in my flex spots.
There's a time where we said Chris Godwin was always a buy, and we're going to make a shirt about it and everything.
Which is funny because we haven't had him as a buy this offseason.
No.
It's been the first in our 3 years we haven't done it.
Very all quiet with Chris Godwin. But
he's now
is the time.
He's now a buy.
Yeah, so. Now is the time. I think now is the time for DeAndre Swift as well. Unfortunately, I feel like we go through this DeAndre Swift saga all the time. And that is, he's being undervalued because of what his ceiling could be. I think we know what DeAndre Swift's ceiling is. DeAndre Swift is a high-end running back 2. He was a high-end running back 2 last year in the best situation in the NFL. He was a high-end running back 2 before that when he was playing and healthy. He's now going to the Chicago Bears, where they have a very good passing game, we would assume, with Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. So what do you think DeAndre Swift is going to do? How is he going to be able to produce in an offense with all those guys and Cole Kmet and Khalil Herbert? What are we going to do? Guys, they just signed him to a 3-year deal. A 3-year. He was one of the first running back signings in the free agent market this year. The Chicago Bears went out of their way to go and pay him significantly more than I ever expected. I thought as technically unproven as Swift was, I thought he was going to get a 1-year deal.
Yeah,
a prove-it year.
I did too.
I thought he was going to be a prove-it deal. No, they wanted him, and they wanted him big time. I understand there are major concerns with Swift and his vision specifically and how he could end up, underwhelming again. That's completely fine. Him underwhelming, again, it's baked into his price. His price, guys, he exceeded expectations last year on the Eagles. When I tried to tell you he was a buy, and those of you who listened, it paid off, especially in the first 2/3 of the season before the Eagles fell off and decided to crap the bed. Everyone in the offense was horrible. Now, I understand the situation is less ideal, but it's baked into his price. He keeps falling in value. It's just a steady decline, This is literally, this is a carbon copy of what happened last year. A carbon copy. He had a little tiny spike when he went to a different situation, and then it just kept declining until his value was the same, if not lower than it previously was. This is when Dynasty is easy. Do you want production? Do you want cheap, affordable production that honestly has some pretty decent value insulation? You can get it in DeAndre Swift at price. He's cheaper than Ricky Pearsall right now. I don't have an issue with Pearsall's price currently, but if you want points on your team in 2024, then go get DeAndre Swift, please.
I agree. And I honestly think that he's somebody that's going to get a lot of hype in training camp. And so people are going to be like, oh, DeAndre Swift. Right. I also think that Devon Achane's probably going to get a lot of hype. I know that because he's already gotten a fair amount of hype. And he's kind of the last guy here, the bonus guy, because I don't want to put myself out there saying, buy Devon Achane. I think he's risky. I think there's risk attached to him. I also think Raheem Mostert's still pretty good. I also think that they got Jalen Wright, who's pretty good. But I do think that he's a very good running back, a very good football player. And I think he could generate a lot of hype in the training camp / preseason portion of the NFL season. And once he does, I think that you might be able to flip him for more than what he's worth now, because his value has kind of hovered around like that late fourth, early fifth range. And I honestly think I could see him with his age, with what he did in his rookie year. Everybody's just kind of like, can he stay healthy? Like, that's kind of the question. Like, what's the backfield going to look like? I think if you see him like stay healthy through training camp and then like show he's either 1A or 1B for the Dolphins, I think you're probably going to see the Dynasty community get higher on him. And then I think you can probably flip him for some better assets. So he's kind of a flip candidate for me. But those are guys, again, that we think going into training camp, which we're so excited training camp is finally here. Like, we actually are going to have stuff to talk about now. Going into training camp, we think you should maybe be sending some trades for those guys. So do us a huge favor. If you play Dynasty and you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 15,000 subscribers, and you can help us do that and help us by liking the video as well. Also, flockfantasy.com/domain to get the annual Mother Flocker tier and a team blueprint. You also get all of our tools, trade calculator, rankings, my teams, all of it. Or you can buy a team blueprint without the membership. If you go down in the comments, I've got a pinned comment down there with a link. Go take you directly to the page where you submit your team for a blueprint. Like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you later.